Hey, it's Sam. For this week's video, I'm going to release one of my favorite lessons from the last version of our sales course right here on YouTube for free. Now, I'm coming to you from a co-working space today, and we're working fervently to put out our sales course next week on March 31st. If you're watching this in the future, the course is already out and the price has already gone up in Local SEO Academy. But if you're watching this video live, the price is going to go up next week. So if you're not already in on the community tier, you're going to want to check that out. And by the way, before I go, just know that'll make you very happy. Kind of like this little smiley face guy right there. See that? Who did that? Not me, because that would be damaging property. I did not do that. Anyway, this is my favorite lesson. It's super long, but it's going to teach you how to get your first 5 clients in SEO. Go check it out and drop a comment below and let me know what you think about this. And tell me how you got your first client or how you're hoping to get your first client. All right, enjoy the video.
What's good? It is Sam. I'm rocking the baseball cap. It's late at night. I've been thinking about that one. It is the 5th of July, and VJ dropped a really good question. I'm not even going to pull it up. I'm just going to keep this straight here, but I'm going to read it really quick. He said, can you share some tips about how to price local SEO packages? Each business is different and has certain needs. That's the key to this question here, and I hope I don't lose sight of that as I'm about to meander for minutes on this topic. Okay, trust me, I'm going to talk about this for a second here. He says, I'm trying to figure out how to structure the monthly recurring packages so that customers get the best value and we get paid for our efforts, a win-win for both, right? That should always be what we're setting out to do, is find that win-win where our clients get results and we get paid fairly for our work. Now, if you have not already, the first thing I recommend you do is go to lesson 7 of the Local SEO Masterclass. I believe it's 2.3. It talks about the different ways to sell SEO, particularly local SEO. By the way, consider this a rough draft for a later, hopefully smoother version of this lesson. In that other lesson, I talk about how there's 2 methods that I really like out there. SEO care plans, which are kind of your tried and true SEO plans, but typically have a contract. You may have seen my recent post where I mentioned I got my first contracted client. Why would you make that shift, Sam? Well, I think I'll tell the story throughout this lesson, so stick with me here. But typically, I really like the SEO sprint model. I believe it's what got me from $200 of recurring revenue to around $5,000 to $6,000 of recurring revenue, was because of the SEO sprint model. Now, there's pros and cons to the SEO sprint model, just like there's pros and cons to the contracted SEO care plan model. So, there's never a perfect plan. It could be different for different clients. I'll start off this lesson by talking about what I'm planning on doing moving forward, which is actually offering both, but leading with the contract, and I'll explain why later on. That's my hook to get you to watch the whole lesson. Hopefully I remember to get to the hook. Sometimes I forget that. I'm going to write it down so I don't forget. I forgot the green screen thing's still on. That looks weird as heck. But let's start by taking a journey. Now, I'm sorry, this is just so weird. It looks like a ghost, doesn't it? Okay, sorry, back on. Let's go on a journey through how I went from my first client to where I'm at now, pricing wise, because I think you're probably going to go on a similar journey. However, I want you to hopefully take some shortcuts so you don't have to take on as many $500 clients as I did. That's pretty much the bottom line here. Before we get started, let's talk about the deliverables, because people are going to get really hung up on this. Like, there's not enough deliverables on your website. This is where you have to come in, okay? In the early days, which we're going to talk about here in a second, it's going to be harder to explain, the deliverables don't really matter. It's the results that matter. That's true. Over time, you're going to have results to show off. That's the whole point of this lesson. Is by the end of this, if you follow this, you'll have results to show off to the next clients. And then the deliverables will matter less. And let me just get that out in the open. The deliverables don't matter. They do. We have to hit certain boxes, not necessarily every month though. It changes. You're going to see, this is why the sprint model works, and it's still what I do behind the scenes, even if I don't say it out loud. And I do say it out loud. I said, I'm going to do SEO sprints, but now you're on a contract, because I don't want you to run away after 4 months. I don't want you to make a bunch of money and then say, I'm going to go spend this money on something else. Never had that happen before. And we'll talk about that. Okay, so when it comes to the SEO care plan, there's really 3 big deliverables. And I always tell people this is what's actually important for local SEO. That's why it's the deliverables for my local SEO plan. Number one, Google Business Profile Management. Let's dig in a little bit more than that. We have a whole course on this, but it's getting it set up, optimizing the profile, which you're probably going to do in the first month or two, and then managing it over time. And I'm not super hung up on how much I post Google updates, because if you've seen in other lessons, hopefully you've dug in to this stuff. These lessons are already up, so I can recommend you to check these out. But like, the posts aren't going to help us rank that much, but it does kind of help too. So Google rewards activity over time, so it's important to do those posts. How often? Not that often, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week when you're first getting started with a client, but that's it. And especially over time, we might be able to slow them down to every other week. So that's not a lot of deliverables, right? We're also doing like photos, like Q&As, review coaching, as I like to say, dialing in the services and the products. That's it, right? Go to the Google Business Profile Expert course. I'll have that fully uploaded by the end of next week, I promise. Whoa, I just hit my keyboard up and down. Sorry about that. I know I'm behind on local masterclass, but we're getting there. Local SEO masterclass. Anyway, okay. So that's number one, GBP. Number two is ongoing on-page SEO optimizations. All right, it's kind of a mouthful, but that's what it is, right? And really what we're doing is I've been working on this SOP with my SEO apprentice, as I like to call him lately. And it's like, okay, so look at the SERP. Where are you at? Probably not first if you're looking at the SERP, right? But look at the SERP, see where you're at organically, not, GBP was the map back, right? And let's say you're ranking like 7th, right? You're going to want to look, what's the competition doing that we're not doing? This is where the competitor research really comes in. We're going to do this on the front end too, but over time, we want to do this. We want to reevaluate. Maybe even look and be like, what's changed? Wait a minute. The person that was 5th is now 3rd. Look, they did something. Maybe we could follow their tracks. That's hard to track. You have to do that manually. The tools aren't really good at doing stuff like that. Even SEMrush, you pay them hundreds of dollars a month, and it doesn't track things like this. It'd be great if it could. But what we want to do is we just want to keep making sure. Now, this is, again, like I talked about in other lessons, relevancy, authority. This is the relevancy part, right? Are we in the right bucket? We should be, by the time you get to the care plan part, because like I said, I'm going to get to the SEO sprint. All right, I'm working my way there in a roundabout way. But the relevancy part should be taken care of once we're done with the foundation sprint and the growth sprint. All right, we should be in the right SEO buckets. We should be showing up in the right SERPs. So really, we should be working on the next piece. But it doesn't hurt to make sure we're not all the way in. Right? Are there some other things that we could do to maybe boost it up? And like, especially over time, as we work on location pages, for instance, maybe now we have some projects. We can go back and be like, hey, we didn't have a project for that city, but now we do. Let's say it's a roofer, right? They did a roof out in Redmond. Okay, well, let's add that project to the Redmond roofing page, right? Or whatever. Like, I think you can fill in the blanks on that example. So this is how we keep the pages fresh without having to write a bunch of blogs. We're actually literally keeping the pages fresh with new content, new reviews from that area, new projects from that area. That's just an example for like location pages, but same thing with the services, right? If we have some projects now, we have some new photos we can add. We can swap out some of those stock photos we started with real photos. Like, there's all these little things that we can do. Did we hit all the boxes? Did we do the alt text last time? Like, did we miss anything? Have we done schema? Like, there's always things to look at in this bucket. It doesn't mean we have to do it every month. It's just saying we're going to check and we're going to see if there's anything we're missing, and we can do it during the month. The third one is probably, I don't want to say it's the most important, but it might be the one you kind of spin your wheels on the most, is backlinks. I know we don't like to talk about it, but it's true. All right, it's messy, it's gross. I'm really working on SOPs for this. I promise you, me and my apprentice, we've been working on this. That's my new title I've bestowed upon him. I don't know if he likes it or not, but anyway, he is doing a really good job of challenging me to make sure there's actual SOPs involved. So when this course gets finalized, you guys will be able to just jump right in, have a Google sheet, copy the stuff from SEMrush or Ahrefs, whichever tool you're using, hopefully SEMrush, so it lines up perfectly. And then, you'll be able to just start going down the list and trying to fill out these really crappy, let's be honest, it's mostly pretty crappy directory listings. And also I'm hoping to have like a resource with some of the ones that are kind of agnostic, like almost anybody can get a link from this website. And then you just kind of want to piece these out over time. Now, I know this is kind of disjointed, but like in the early months, you're going to have a ton of things that you could do, and you're just kind of checking the list off, or checking the boxes off of the list. And then as the months go on, it actually gets easier for you because there's less to do, but you should already be ranking higher. And at that point, now your job is to look out at the strategy and say, okay, are there other keywords that we should be targeting? Are there other services that we're not ranking for? Reach back out to the client. And then also, are there other locations that we should be targeting? And now we can start working on them, right? That's the whole, like, this is how we keep working together over time. And I mean, realistically, right, let's be real here, that for some of the keywords, we'll probably get to first with some of your clients, and that's going to be great. You're going to be like, yeah, we did it. And it's going to change. You're going to look it up on your phone, and you're going to be ranking second, and be like, dang it, and that's the one I showed them. But at the end of the day, some of your more competitive keywords, there's going to be these top dogs that are at the top, and they almost can't be taken down unless we keep working on it, right? Like, we shouldn't give up. We shouldn't give up. So that's the SEO care plan deliverables. Google Business Profile Management, ongoing on-page optimizations, and building authority through locally relevant and industry relevant backlinks. Okay, you get it? That's pretty much the gist. Obviously, it'd be good to include some kind of reporting. That is included in the Local SEO Masterclass. I talk about that. Yeah, I have a whole course on that, so I'm not going to, or a whole lesson on that, so I'm not going to talk about it because I go into a lot of detail on that and the process I went through with that. I believe you should scale, you should grow into it, not go into it. Eric Dingler says that. He says it from somebody else, but that's who I've heard it from. Check out his podcast. But yeah, I'm not going to tell you guys to do what I do right now with X number of clients, right? Because it might not make sense for you financially. It didn't make sense for me financially when I had 0 SEO clients. I'm not going to tell you to go start spending $70 a month to get this reporting tool that you might not need right now. In that lesson, I tell you what I do recommend you do. So check out that lesson when it comes out. It's like in Module 4 of the Local SEO Masterclass. I don't have my stuff in front of me right now. Just trust me, it's a good one. And that's it. That's it. But that's not everything, okay? We left out a big piece of the puzzle. The SEO care plan should not just start, okay? You should not just jump into an SEO care plan. You got to do the heavy lifting in the front end. And this is where the sprint model is really helpful. In the SEO foundation sprint, let me take a look at where am I at here? In the SEO foundation sprint, what we're doing is again, I already talked about this in the last lesson, but disaster recovery, building the keyword database, optimizing Google Business Profile, and mostly coming up with the strategy, okay? We're also looking for easy wins, and we're trying to get some of those easy wins to show the client. If they're on a pay-as-you-go typical SEO sprint plan, you have to deliver those results because otherwise they're not going to move with you to the next phase, okay? So that's the first phase. We have to do all that stuff first. This is not the SEO care plan. These are the deliverables for the foundation sprint. Then in the growth sprint, what are we doing? We're actually building out the content that needs to be built. For some clients, that's going to be an entirely new website. For others, it's going to be modifying some of the pages or maybe just building out a couple extra pages so that you can target some other keywords. Sometimes you kind of got to just chill. Like maybe their website's really good or it's so big that you don't want to change anything. I have a client like that right now where I'm like, oh man, this site's huge. I think we're just going to chill and try to get them to rank higher. And I think it'll be a good case study, and I'll talk about this one later. But like, let's just try to focus on what they signed up for us to do. And then from there, we can worry about mucking around with cleaning the whole website up, right? Let's just quarantine off the space that we know we need to target the keyword that we're ranking or trying to rank for. We're not ranking for, well, we're ranking really low for. You guys saw the client call if you watched that video already. So we're ranking really low. How do we rank higher? Well, for that client, we still have to do the foundation sprint. But the growth sprint, we're going to kind of forego that, and we're going to go straight into the care plan because this is, and particularly the authority building part, or sorry, not the authority building part. Actually, actually most of the work is probably going to be done in the foundation sprint where we're doing the disaster recovery and looking for the easy wins. Once we've done that, I have a feeling that this client's going to be ranking higher already, and now we can just focus on let's see, that's foundation, this is care plan. We can focus on the care plan stuff, and we can circle back to the growth sprint, and we can say, okay, what else could we build out? What else could we target? And that's really the dipping back in for more. Okay, so if you just follow the typical SEO sprint model, you start with the foundation sprint, you build out the content, and then you would keep building content. Like that's the way Ryan Stewart has it set up. But I think you need to go to the care plan for a little bit, let the client chill, let their pocket relax, hopefully get some results, feel really good about them. And then from there, you can actually come back and be like, well, there's actually a few more pages that we need to build out. I've done this with a client before, okay? And so that's kind of the SEO sprint model. Again, if that gets too confusing for you or for your clients, for your leads, trying to sell that, it can be kind of complicated to explain. Like you're gonna potentially pay $750 a month, but then I could come back to you and charge you $1,250 again because we see some content we need to build out. That could be confusing. As a client myself, that would be confusing. And so that's one of the pros to switching to a contracted SEO sprint model, which I'll talk about a little bit more at the end. But now we've been talking for 15 minutes. I want to try to get this done in the next 15 minutes, okay? So I want to try to explain, like, how do we get from where you're at today, and I'm going to assume that you have 0 SEO clients in this situation, okay? Let's say you have 0 local SEO clients. How do we get from where you are today to having multiple clients paying you, let's say $1,000 a month, right? That's the goal. You're going to see, like, my care plan sweet spot is about $750 a month, but if we can get to 1,000, that's great, right? If we can get to 1,000, we only need, you know, what? I mean, 10 clients is 6 figures, right? And again, we're just trying to get that first 6 figures. Once we get to the first 6 figures, we can take a deep breath, figure out the rest from there, all right? Then we can actually justify having an apprentice. Sam, what are you doing? Okay, so let's get into it. So your very first client is going to be you, period, point blank. A lot of you came from Web Designer Pro, where I recently had a pro training, talks about how to rank your own site higher locally. Now, I'm not allowed to steal that lesson and put it in our academy. Maybe, I don't know. I can reach out to Josh. He'd probably be nice enough to let us reuse it. I think he's actually going to post it on YouTube after that point. Then I'll ask for it. But I think that's the most important thing you can do in the early days. For no other reason but to have some results, people. Like right now, you have no results if you have 0 clients. Again, this is the scenario we're talking about. So if you have no results, how can you go up to that first client and say, give me $1,000 a month, I'm going to do your SEO. And be like, okay, like, why do I trust you? And maybe you like listen really well to everything you learn in here and you just regurgitate it and you're like, look, SEO comes down to 2 things, relevancy, authority. I'm going to get you to show up on the right pages. I'm going to get you to rank higher. How do I do that? We're going to manage your Google business profile over time, because Google rewards activity over time. It's going to get you to show up in the map pack. Then we're going to do ongoing on-page SEO optimizations, make sure that you're definitely on the right page. We're going to look at your competitors, make sure we're doing what we need to do there. And then, last but not least, most important potentially is to get you to rank higher by getting locally relevant backlinks, industry relevant backlinks. Don't worry about that. That's for me to figure out. Please don't go buy backlinks on Fiverr. Now, especially if I talk like that, I don't get a lot of people to buy from me. But here's the thing, like, if you can sound like an expert, people will be like, oh, all that stuff kind of makes sense. I don't know what half of that meant, but okay, yeah, that sounds like you know what you're talking about. People tend to want to know some kind of results or like hear it, right? A lot of my local clients, they've heard it from somebody else. They had one person say, oh yeah, I work with Sam, he's pretty good. And that's what I was banking on, okay? And like, sometimes you don't even see that stuff happening. Like, you know, like, have you ever had a friend at a networking event and you talk to them later and they're like, oh, I recommend you to this person. And you're like, oh, I'm working with that person. Or maybe they talked to you and it maybe didn't work out, but it was a lead, right? Sometimes you get a lead. Maybe it's a poorly qualified lead, but they came not vetted, that's the word that's popping in my head, but they're a warmer lead because they were like, that personal recommendation was there. Getting off track. The point is that the more results we can get, the better. So that's our goal with our first couple clients, is to get results. So number 1 is us. Now, when I was thinking about this today, I was driving back home from my folks' place, and I realized I'm not actually ranking first for web design in my area. And so I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to start a challenge right now. I'm sure a lot of people aren't watching at 18:59 in this video, but if you made it this far, this is my challenge to you. Leave a comment on the course somewhere. I don't know which direction I'm pointing, but say which keyword you want to try to rank for. Do a little keyword research, make sure it's the right one. Let me know if you need help trying to figure it out. But I think we should all challenge ourselves. I'm going to post this here next week. I'm going to sit down and do the first video for this. And I'm going to post these. I'm going to do like a weird promotion thing. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But I'm going to try to get myself to rank higher. I'm going to walk through it. Now, I've already done this on YouTube with SEO, Bend, Oregon. But this is another one. I just want to show you, like, this is a replicable process. And so I don't rank number 1 for this. I'm actually going up against agencies for this one, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to try to do it, and I have no idea what's going to happen. Okay, I'm going to do it live, but we're going to see what happens. All right, that's what I did last time. We're ranking first, so we'll see what happens this time. All right, now your first client is you. Go until at least you get some results, right? Even if, like, okay, some of us in this group live in really small towns with a few thousand people. You should be able to get pretty close to the top for like SEO and web design or whatever your main services are. If you live in something like Orlando, that's going to be a harder game. So try to figure out if there's another area that you could try to rank for, like a suburb or something that even if you don't live there, like you're associated with it somehow, like maybe you go there frequently for whatever reason. So anyway, that's our goal for us. That's client number one. Now the second type of client that we're going to have after we get ourselves to rank higher is going to be these people that we've already worked with before. Now here's the thing, Local SEO Academy is not marketed to people that are starting an SEO agency from scratch. Most of the people in here, particularly right now, are web designers. We've got technical SEO. I think down the road we might see graphic designers, social media managers, maybe branding experts. I could even see people that own full-on digital marketing agencies, but feel like their local SEO services are lacking and just want to refine that coming in. What that means is you're going to have clients ready. And so Josh Hall does a really good job of talking about this, like A clients, B clients, C clients. And typically when he talks about that, he's talking about the amount of money that they give you. But there's also like that other side of ABC, which he also talks about, where it's like the client that, you know, you might get invited to Thanksgiving, the client that, you know, sometimes you text outside of work, and then like the ones that you just, they send you a message and you're like, oh my God, it's them again. And so take a moment to sit down with all of your current clients. Don't spend a whole lot of time, just a little bit, a couple minutes, 15 minutes, maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes, right? And figure out who's really in the top, like who's in both boxes. Save those people for the next assignment, okay? But for these people, probably somewhere in the middle, okay? Because the next group we're going to actually try to sell to, but for these next 2 clients, what we're going to actually do is we're going to offer our SEO services for free. Now, if you haven't seen this really viral video by Alex Hormozy, he says you suck, so you have to give away, you know, your first 5 for free or something like that, right? Now, I don't think you suck, but you know, maybe you're lacking when it comes to offering local SEO services at this point. Again, if your first client was yourself, that means you got 1 under your belt and hopefully some results under your belt. That's great. But these next couple people, we don't have a lot to bank on. So what I would recommend doing, and this is exactly what I did, is you can go up to them and say, hey, really awesome client that we've already worked together for, I am working on refining my local SEO skills and I want to try to get your site to rank higher. No catch. I'm going to do it for a couple months. I would use like a loose term like that, so you're not committed to doing it for a certain amount of time. And then you just tell them at the end, there's no obligation to continue. I'll just do a little bit, give you kind of a boost, and then we'll kind of go from there. And if I get really good at it, I might come back down the road and maybe give it a discounted rate if you want to continue. But again, there's no pressure. This is just to help me get better. Most clients are not going to bat an eye at that. Also, an alternative option is if you're working on a website right now, web designers out there, then you might want to be like, I'm just going to give you a little SEO boost, add a little extra sauce in there. And so you're just kind of going to do it. And that's what I really did for the next 2 clients. The next 2 websites that I had, which were really some of the first ones I was getting paid decent money for, I just did SEO as a part of the package. And it's more of like the foundation sprint side of things. And so that's kind of what you're doing, right? You're doing the SEO boost, you're doing the technical SEO, you're doing the initial keyword research maybe, but you're not doing any of the ongoing stuff. And maybe you do, right? Maybe you do that for a couple months just to kind of get used to it. You definitely need to get some Google Business Profile reps in. The more you can do, the better. Now, of course, we'd love to see results. So kind of cherry pick these clients as well. Not just the ones you like working with, but ones that are like feasible to get movement right away. I encourage you to look at any of your old clients, and if their homepage is home, or their homepage SEO title is home bar brand name, boom, there you go. Right now, they're probably not ranking for their primary keyword, or they're ranking really low, like in the 80s. You can probably get them to rank higher. Depending on the competitiveness, I've seen different examples of this. There's like the health coach where I go in and change the SEO title and they go from not showing up to showing up ninth overnight, versus the naturopath. Very similar industries, exact same town. Build out this really awesome landing page that's SEO optimized, right? The other one, I didn't have control of the content. It was the old website. But for the naturopath, we launched the site and it's ranking like 80th. It's competitive. It's very competitive. For health coach, not so competitive. So just be mindful of that, right? Try to, what's the saying, hedge your bet, right? Like try to bet on a winning horse in this situation because you want to get results, right? Doesn't mean you don't want to challenge yourself, but in the early days, like give yourself some easy ones. Don't come out there and try to, run a marathon on your first day, right? Like just try to run 1 mile. Let's try to run 1 mile. Okay, so let's try to get easy ones. And also, if you get any hesitation during this phase or the next phase, let them know that you're in an SEO community and just say like, hey, like people have my back. If I have any questions, I'm going to reach out to them. These are, you can say we're experts or, you're part of a community. It's just like the advantage of having Web Designer Pro. Like in your early days when you offer your first couple websites, people might be like, why should I trust you? And be like, well, if I have any questions, I'm in this community. I can reach out to these people. They have dozens of years of experience. We might have dozens of years of experience, but we've had plenty of clients where we're getting results, and so we can use those same processes. I'm trying to figure out what the light is. Why is the light doing that today? It doesn't normally do that. Anyway, it's bothering me over here. I'm going to ignore it, letting it go. So that's the next phase. So work on your own SEO. Work on your own SEO. Then we're going to give away 2 for free. Okay, 2. And again, ambiguous time frame. It can be anywhere from like 1 to 3 months. Hopefully enough time to get some results. And again, if you need help, reach out. Okay, please. Okay, this is the stuff where we can really help you get those reps in early, but feel supported while you're doing it. Now the next 2, now we're going to start asking for some money. So this is why you want to have your A clients saved up. Again, you're just talking to the people you already know. You're not trying to sell out into the public yet. Okay, for these people, what you're going to do, initial offer, I'd come up and I'd say, hey client, like I just want to, it was so great working with you on your website a couple months ago. I noticed that you're not really ranking for your primary keyword, which I've actually learned is blah blah blah, right? Cabinet makers in Bend, Oregon. I have been working on refining my SEO services, and really I should be charging $1,000 a month for this. And what I like to do is find an agency in town. Someone will have their pricing online and point to them, or you'll hear like other people's pricing structures, and so you can be like, okay, that's what they charge, so that's roughly $1,250 a month, or that's, I can see on their website it's $1,000 a month, or I can see on their website it's $2,000 a month. There's one agency in town that all their packages start at $2,000 a month, but it includes social media management, so that's kind of why. But I point to that all the time. I'm like, well, Manscaped Media charges over $2,000 a month for their base package. And I'm honest, I'm like, that includes social media management. But still, like, you could get social media management for under $1,000. So that is over $1,000 for SEM. So, to be fair, I should be charging close to $1,000, maybe a little under, because I'm not a giant agency like they are. I don't have all the overhead that they have. But because I'm just getting started, I wanted to offer you a really good deal because I want to help you rank higher. And so here's what I'm hoping for, is I'm hoping that I can work with you for the next 3 months, and I'm willing to offer that at $500 a month. And at the end of the 3 months, if you're not totally in love with the results, we don't have to continue at all. But if you want to continue, I will actually honor that price. I'll keep you on that price. And you can put a time frame if you want, or just be like, we'll revisit that later. But I'll keep you on it if you want. That can be an incentive to some people. I feel like I'm not doing the best job of selling this right now. Can you tell I'm a bad salesman? This is the re-recording, in case you're watching this and you heard me. You saw the comment where I was like, my mic cut out, so this is me recording it for the second time. I feel like I did way better the first time. I always hate that when I re-record. I'm like, dang it, I said something really good, but I can't hear what I said because there's no mic recording. Anyway, just offer it $500, 3 months, $500 per month for 3 months, so $1,500 altogether. $1,500 isn't that much. If a business owner is not willing to invest $1,500 in their SEO, they're probably never going to be able to afford SEO, and that's a good sign. There's a chance you might have to shop this around to 3 or 4 clients before you finally get somebody to say yes. If there's hesitation, but they seem interested, if they don't seem interested at all, just like, okay, get it, I'm gonna move on to the next person. If there's just some hesitation, offer them this. This is what I did. Say, I will give you a deal, because I'm still just getting started. I will do, if you give me $1,000 up front, I'll give you all 3 months for the $1,000. All right. And this is exactly how I did it. I had one person who was a very warm lead that I'd gotten from the local business community. People were already talking me up, so that was good. And then I had a current client. So at this phase, this is what I did. The new person, I said, I really shouldn't be charging less than $750 for this, but I'm willing to do 3 months at $500 per month. What do you say? And they said, yeah, I can do that. I could do that. And that person's still on a $500 per month plan. They're not the best at paying their invoices, so we'll see if they stick around. But you know, she's one of the OGs, as I like to call it, and so I'm okay with doing that. And I'll talk about how do we keep that fair for us on the back end here in a second. And then the other person, I'd just done their website, and I said, hey, we should do some SEO, right? I'm about to start offering this as a service. I want you to be one of my first. And he was hesitant, but I offered the deal. I said, hey, I'll give you, 3 months for 2 months, basically. And he had to think about it, and I let him think about it. And I'm glad that I did, because he called me back a week later after he got his first contact form submission, which wasn't actually a good lead. But he said, you know what, I see how this is going to work, and I know that we're not ranking high enough, so let's do it. I figure 3 months from now for $1,000, actually charge $400 a month. Don't do that. Don't ever charge less than $500 a month USD. By the end of 3 months, he thought in his mind for $800, which should be $1,000 for your clients, an extra $200 that they'll round up, it'll be fine. They should hopefully see, like, okay, for $1,000 or even for $1,500, I can see the value in that. And you're hungry, you're scrappy, and you're personable. They've already worked with you. They already know, like, and trust you. It should be a slam dunk. It might not be, right? I'm not a salesy guy. I'm not going to sit here and be like, this is going to be a no-brainer for your clients. Of course they're going to do it. People are people, right? They're going to human the situation. Some people are going to look at you and be like, that's a good deal. I'm not going to do it, right? Whatever, right? Move on to the next person. But these two people could be some of your best brand advocates, as they are for me. Like, these were some of the best results I got. And again, I kind of, I hedged my bets. I said, okay, I think the cabinet maker is going to be in it for the long haul. He's going to see the long-term vision. The other person, who was actually a florist, who's not really the best fit for our services, but that's a different lesson. But her big goal was, she was ranking third in the map pack. She wanted to be first. And you know what? Less than a month later, we were first in the map pack. Hey! And so ever since then, she runs around town and she says, hey, Sam's the best at SEO. Like, I've been trying to do this for 2 years, and he got in there for a month and got me first, and I've been first since then. And it's like, yeah, hallelujah, right? That's the kind of stuff you want to get spread around town. So those are your next two clients, okay? So just a quick review. Number one, you're going to do your own SEO. You're going to get some results from that. Number two, we're going to get this ambiguous time frame with two of our medium quality clients. I hate to call it that, but you know what I'm saying. For free, and we're going to get some results for them, hopefully easier to rank ones. And then the next phase, we're going to offer a discounted rate for the next two. And so those are our first 5 clients. Now after that, we're going head first. Okay, we're going out to the wild and we are offering SEO services. And now this is the fork in the road, where I have to say, should you follow the exact same path that I did, or should you try to leapfrog and get to where I am right now? Let's go through the journey. And this kind of goes back to VJ's original question of, like, every business is different, right? And that's actually why SEO sprints are really good, because you can customize, you can gauge how much they need, and you can charge them the right amount. I mean, some clients really don't need that much. And so you can get in there and be like, oh, this is actually going to be pretty easy. Or it's like the difference between a client that has a 1-page site and a client that has 300 blog posts, right? Like, it's just obviously the other one. The latter will have way more work. So productizing down to a contracted plan is kind of dangerous in that sense, but it's kind of a numbers game. Anyway, let's talk about SEO sprints. So I'm going to be practical examples here, okay? First client I offer SEO sprints to. Okay, so let's quick review of the pricing structure. Foundation sprint, which we've already talked about the deliverables earlier in the lesson, if I remember correctly. That's first, and it's usually the most. All right, because this is the strategy building phase, this is disaster recovery, but this is the highest phase. Because again, if they don't work with us to the next phase, we got to get paid fairly. Okay, so that's why it's the most expensive. The next one is the growth phase, where you have to build out the website, but really, as soon as the website's built, you should also be doing the SEO care plan. And so this is where it gets tricky. And originally what I was doing is I was just starting the care plan right away. Like, I know, I wish I had a visual aid for you. I'm really sorry. But it's like, okay, this is the foundation sprint, and then this is the growth sprint. at a slightly lower cost. Most of this bar is the care plan, and then you'd spread it out over, say, 6 months. And I'll give you some practical examples here in a second. But what I'm starting to see is like, well, I'm not actually doing the care plan in that first month. Like, we're just worried about maybe rebuilding a brand new website. So you can't do a ton of care plan stuff, maybe some Google Business Profile updates, but that's not going to take up too much of your time, and you're going to spend a lot of time working on the website. So it's like maybe these first 2 blocks should actually just be the website so that you get paid more fairly for the website, and then you can actually start focusing on the care plan stuff, even though you're getting like payment installments for the rest of the website. Yeah, I'm doing a really bad job explaining this right now, but we'll keep taking laps on SEO sprints because I still think it's a fantastic model, and I keep it in my back pocket to this day because I can see a client being like, I just don't want to sign a contract. I'm like, great, I have something that might actually be better than what I normally offer, and it'll be tailored just to you. And so that's why, like, I don't want to get rid of all the work that I did, like crafting local SEO sprints, and I really attribute that taking me from where I am right now, or sorry, where I was to where I am. But like, zoom that picture out from where I was to where I am to where I need to be to actually have a company with employees, right? From there to there, I think takes a different model, okay? Follow the path as you see fit. So, first client, $1,000 for the foundation sprint. Don't charge that much, charge more. And then for the growth sprint, it was like $750, and then for the care plan, it was $500. Don't do that, okay? Care plan needs to be at least $750, all right? That's the goal, and you can charge that much out the gate. Trust me, it seems really high, but that should be the goal. The less clients you have at $500 a month, the better. If you got to charge in the 600 range, that's fine. I've got a couple clients in growth sprints right now that are gonna end up in that $600 price range. I got one client that it's on a $700 a month care plan because he ended up doing hosting with the web designer. We partnered on it. That was actually really cool project. He got the lead, and I'm like, whatever, it's $50, right? I'd rather have the client. I'd rather get $700 a month for the next 12 months, you know, in theory. There's no contract with this client, than lose him because I don't save him $50, right? It's, you know, business economics. So the sprints, it was like 1,000, 1,500. Then I went back down to 1,000 again. Again, that was a mistake. That's too low. And then I actually had one for 2,500, which is crazy. And then 1,500, 2,000, 1,500, and then I started to do a couple like leads. I was pitching at 1,750. I thought that was the sweet spot. I think the real sweet spot is around 1,500. Most clients are okay with that price point. They're like, okay, I'm okay with paying $1,500 a month, especially with the promise that the price is going to go down like this. And so then once you do the found sprint, you get to the growth sprint. Now here's where the math really gets confusing, is you have to figure out, how much do I normally charge for a website? How cheap could I build a website if I'm more efficient and I cut this person a break because I'm going to be working with them over time? Now again, that's banking on them actually working with you over time, which is one of the issues of doing this pay-as-you-go, is, you know, they can bail on you the second they're done paying for the website. And also, this is like, you do have to contract them into paying it because they're basically financing the website during the growth sprint. And so again, like, we can dig into this more, but typically, like, the growth sprint's been anywhere from $750 if they just need a page. I've had 1,000. I got somebody that's on $1,050 for 6 months right now to build out the site, and that was too low. I got somebody that's doing $1,300 for 3 months. That's also too low for what it was. I got another person now that's going to be on $1,200 for 6 months. That's a little more fair, okay? But what I charged for the websites was $2,500, $3,000, $3,500. I think that's a pretty fair price, actually, like for a 5-ish page website for a service-based business. If you're good at designing websites, or you have a team that's good at designing websites, shout out to the ThenCan team that can build websites quickly, way more efficiently than I can. $3,500 is a fair price. Everybody gets paid a decent amount. I take home over half of that. One of those people is in multiple people that work on the project are in America. Everybody's happy. Win, 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 right? All the contractors, the client, me, it's all good. Okay, $3,500, that's, in my head, that's like the price where it's like, I can't go lower than that. I'd like to go higher than that, but I can make that work, okay? So you kind of got to ask yourself that question, because you're probably used, if you've been doing web design for a while, you're probably used to charging more than that. Like, I've been charging $5,000 for websites for people on the streets. That's what I say, like, people coming up to me on the streets, how much do you do a website for? It'd be about $5,000. That's just usually the ballpark number I throw out. So that's kind of a weird paradigm shift, but it's also like the lifetime value, right? So anyway, I could talk about the growth sprint pricing for a long time, but in a nutshell, that's the pricing that I've had. And so the most recent one that I got somebody on is we're doing 6 months at 1,200. So we did a foundation sprint, 1,500, and now we're going to do 6 months at 1,200. And really, I'll probably dig into this one more as a case study, but the first month is just going to be paying for the website, and then the care plan starts on the back end as well. And so then at the end, we get them to the care plan. That's $750 a month. That's the goal. I really think if you're doing this sprint model, you should charge less than $1,000 per month. Okay. And again, this is a good thing to have in your back pocket. If you come across a client that has a really big website, or you don't think you can like zoom in your focus to one part of the website, like, okay, we're only going to focus on this part of their business right now, one piece at a time, then you kind of got to have this card in your back pocket to be like, okay, you are a good fit for us, but your website's huge, or but you offer 20 services and we can't do all of those 20 services at one time. And so it's kind of not fair to look at us and think for $1,000 a month, we're going to try to rank you for all 20 services. What we're really going to do is do pieces at a time. Okay. And so the big shift, and I won't talk too much about it here because that should be its own lesson, but the big shift is that I've had a couple clients fall off between here and here. I've had people I haven't had anybody in the growth plan not pay. So that's a blessing, knock on wood. But I've had people, as soon as they get to the care plan, they're getting results, they're having a good time, they're making a little bit of money, and they just be like, well, I'm gonna go spend my money over here this month because you already got me set up pretty good, so I'll see you. And you're like, wait a minute, hold on, we're like just getting rolling, like we're just starting to get some traction, you're not even ranking first, like don't leave right before the magic starts to happen. And they do because there's no contract. And then you like try to get them back, and they're like, I just want to pause for a month. And you're like, okay. And then you come back next month and I'm like, hey, remember when you said you were going to pause for a month? Like, yeah, but now I have this other expense I need to worry about, but I'll get back to you in a little bit. And it's like, no, now I got to track this person back down. And that's hard, right? That screws with the monthly recurring revenue model. Contracts fix all that. So anyway, I would say I am contract curious and mostly experimenting right now, but I am totally also all in on leading with that. But again, it's like I have the sprints in my back pocket. I feel like that's a tried and true system. I could sell it. I could talk about it all day. I could tweak it for clients. I like a lot of the aspects that holds, but I like having the contract too because it's very simple. I can go up to somebody and they could be like, how much are your SEO services? And I'm like, it's usually $1,000. It's usually $999 a month. And they're like, okay. And that immediately qualifies them or unqualifies them. They're like, I can't afford that. And be like, that's what everybody else in town charges, more than me, actually. All the other people that rank below me charge more than me. So what do you want to do? And yeah, I just thought about that. Like, that's actually true. That was off the cuff, as they say. I should say that. That's a good little saying. All the people that rank below me charge more than me. I like that. Hopefully you can say that soon too. And then hopefully we can charge more than them as time goes on. But I think having that as kind of the entry point is a good point. And then, as you talk to them, be like, well, it actually looks like you need a website, so we need to bump you up to the next plan. And there's this whole thought process of the value proposition escalator or ladder. I've heard it called both. I kind of like the visual of an escalator because I always liked riding escalators when I was a kid. I know anybody else do laps like me. And so it's like having something that could help the small business that's just starting, and then having the next version, and then the next version, and the next version. And spoiler alert, because I'm still kind of crafting this in my mind, is actually doing subscription-based web design, which I haven't actually done at all. But I want to try it out because I haven't been getting a lot of website leads. I don't mind working with those people. And so you get a website, like a landing page this is probably going to be my pricing. So I don't mind sharing it with you guys. So you get a landing page, we'll say $250 a month, but it's probably $249, right? Psychology, but $249 a month for a year. And it gets them used to being in a contract with us. And then once they start to get some results and it's like, oh, things are actually clicking, our business is starting to come along, we need a bigger website. Be like, oh, okay, well, for $300 more a month, $449 a month, now we can build you out that website. And they're like, great, now they have a more professional website, things are starting to click, a couple more months go by, and we're like, actually what you really need help with is your Google business profile. That's how we can get you some more leads. And so for another $300 a month, now we're at $749 a month, we can actually we can add on GBP management, which I'll talk about that at some point in the GBP Expert course. I think at the end of Module 4, this new kind of idea I have of offering just Google Business Profile Management as either for clients that don't have control of their website which I'm actually starting to see some results for that, so that's kind of cool. Or as this value proposition escalator thing. So now you got them on $749 per month plan, and like each time it triggers a new 12-month contract. And so they're like hopefully starting to get some more business. It's another way for them to like get results and fall more in love with you. And then when the time comes, be like, hey, it's only another $250 a month and we can do your whole shebang. But actually, like the catch to that is they're really probably gonna have to jump up to the $12.99 per month plan, because maybe they're not done paying off their website. So that's the part I got to figure out on the back end, is like, how do we keep track of how much they paid for the website? Because it needs to be, that part needs to be fair for us. And so I don't know. That's the only weird part. Is like when they jump between plans. That's the part I still have to figure out. But anyway, that is kind of the, it's like taking from $249 to $449 to $749 to $12.99. It's kind of a bigger jump. So I think it's $7.99, $12.99, and then eventually they can go back down to $9.99 once they're done paying off their website or something like that. But that's the plan, is to get them to the $9.99. But most clients, when they want SEO, they want SEO, right? And it's just a question of whether or not they need their website refreshed. Like, how much content do we have to build out? If it's only a couple pages and the page builder that they have is manageable, I'm okay with $1,000 per month. I think that's fair. But if they need a new website, it's gonna have to be more than that. Okay, I'm checking to make sure the mic's still working. Okay, let's get to the last piece of the puzzle, which is the win-win part of the process, which is how much work do we actually put in on the services? By the way, this whole thing is probably gonna be like 4 different lessons broken up and refined in the final version of this, but I just want to get some of this out there because I know I'm kind of slacking on the local SEO masterclass videos. Again, it's all recorded. I got it with my video editor. He's a good friend of mine. He's been busy with some personal stuff, but he's working through it, and he's going to try to get us some stuff. And so like piecemeal as we get those, we're just going to post them up. And yeah, I might reach out to get a little extra help, get some more hands on deck, but all the stuff's recorded. I really want to launch it to you guys, but just have some patience, please. I promise you it's going to be good. But I figured, why not cheat ahead while we have a second and talk about some of these things, which are maybe more valuable to look at in the early days, right? So anyway, how do we actually do this time-wise? Here's my golden rule. And before I say this, when I say 1 hour, I mean 1 hour of your time. And I am assuming that you are really good at local SEO. You've gone through all the modules. You are now efficient. And because you've gone through these first 5 clients kind of slowly, kind of clunkily, right? Now you're ready. Like, these are the first ones that you charge at the regular price, whatever that is. This is the mantra that I follow. Now, my hours don't equal what my apprentice does. When I tell him to do a task, I give him 2, maybe 3 hours, do what would take me 1. I hope that he catches up to me, but we're still just getting started. He's about to hit the 3-month mark. He's been training, and he's starting to do actual SEO tasks. He's been doing Google Business Profile posts for a while because that's easy, right? You can delegate that super easy. And the main reason he hasn't been able to do other stuff quicker is because I got to get the SOPs from out of here and into Notion, and we've been doing that, and I'm excited to share that stuff with you guys soon. But I want to clean it up and actually have it be good before we share that stuff with you. But anyway, my golden rule is 1 hour per week per client. Again, 1 hour per week per client. That is the minimum. Okay, again, that's you. That is your high level thinking. Now, I'm not saying that always has to be you. I'm just saying like that should be the frame of reference. Okay, and I even was thinking about this a little bit more today, like how can I refine this a little bit more, but I'm just going to give you like a general sketch and you'll kind of figure out your process. But like, so we're going to skip again, foundation, growth, sprint, right? Or sorry, foundation, growth, care. Okay, so I'm going to start with care again because that's a really good place to start to kind of give us our rough sketch. Again, it's Google Business Profile Management, ongoing on-page SEO optimizations, and authority building through locally relevant, industry relevant backlinks. Okay, so when we're at that phase, making the Google Business Profile updates, that's easy, right? You're going to do that maybe at the start of the month. Maybe that's your first hour block each month. You're going to put the 4 posts for the month. If that's what you're doing, is weekly GBP post. Again, you'll figure out your thing. Maybe pick the pictures you're going to post and kind of schedule those out throughout the month. I wish there was a better scheduling tool. There's not, but so yeah, that's what you're going to do for that. If that takes you an hour, maybe, right? Okay, boom, that's week 1. We'll say the on-page SEO optimizations. Again, you don't always have to do that. It's going to be based on need. So obviously when you're first starting, you're going to be doing that. But again, that's foundation stuff. But as you're kind of maybe evolving your plan and that's kind of the fourth part, right, is the strategy part. So like if your strategy dictates like we're going to target another keyword, we're going to target the next service down their chain of like priority services, or we're doing pretty good at our main location. Now we want to work on location number 2 that's sitting next to us where they want to drum up some more business. Okay, now let's build out that page. What keyword should we be targeting? Is that page dialed in? So that would be the on-page optimizations. And that could take an hour. Sometimes you might do 2 hours at a time, right? Again, it's a minimum. And then the last part's building authority. Once we're in the right bucket, then we want to build authority. Generally speaking, I like to link back to the home page because that helps the whole site lift up higher, but it wouldn't hurt to build a couple links to the actual service pages. That's hard to do, but we'll talk about that. Definitely we will talk about that over time and figure out like how do we build authority to this specific page. If you can do that, that's the secret sauce that can help you compete against the big dogs. Okay, so don't worry, we'll get to that. We'll have SOPs. I got a little Google sheet that I'm working on. Excited to share it with you guys. Like, I've never been more excited to share a Google sheet in my life, but I think you guys are gonna like that one. Okay, so that's that. And again, you could spend an hour, maybe 2 a month doing that. And you're probably gonna wait a couple months before you get into that. But once everything's dialed in, then that's honestly like this is the grossest secret in local SEO. Is like that's probably the majority of what you're gonna be doing ongoing. But once you see these SOPs, you're gonna quickly learn like, this is very delegatable. Is that a word? Yeah, delegatable. Probably not a word. Maybe we just invented it. But this is a task you can delegate very easily. And this person does not need to know how to do SEO. It is like, I'm talking a VA task. Like, look, you can either give them the list or you can be like, here's how you get the list. And like, if they can build the list, that's going to save you a bunch of time. But then it's like, you're going to go down this list and then you're going to go over here and you're going to fill out a form and then you're going to come back to the list and you're going to say what happened. And you're just going to keep doing that. And I don't want you to do too many. Actually, I only want you to do a couple at a time. And then, just report your hours to me. And it's going to be like an hour. And, you can get people all over the world to do that task. And so, yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that for now. We'll talk more about that later. And the last part is just strategy. You do want to include a little bit of that each month. And it's also going to be good, and hopefully I have something to share with you guys when we get to that point, but some way to keep track of your tasks so you can kind of follow the breadcrumbs. And that's something I was really bad at in the early days, because when you only have 5 clients, it's easy to do that. Once you start to get up to 10 clients, it gets harder to do that. But if you're doing everything, then you can still kind of remember like, oh, what did I do 6 weeks ago for this client? And like you think about it long enough, you'll figure it out. But it took you 20 minutes and you only gave yourself an hour block to work on this. So that can be hard. So it's good to leave breadcrumbs, even just for yourself, but especially once you start to get another cook in the kitchen, you definitely want to have that system dialed in. And I think I actually have something for you. We've been kind of refining a task database that's attached to the client. It's pretty cool. It's it's just internal. The client wouldn't be able to see it, but I think it's pretty clean. Anyway, so again, generally speaking, 1 hour per month I think is fair, because I want you guys to make roughly $100 an hour. And also, like, that's why when it gets to $750 a month or $1,000 a month on contracted, what we're doing is we're like, the 750 is to give you more wiggle room to hire. Okay, the 1,000 per month, but spread out over a year, is because we're only talking about the care plan. All right, again, the gross rent is the cost of a website. So like, how much does it cost you to build a website? You got to ask yourself that question. Like, could I do this more efficiently? Like, are there some corners I can cut? And like, I hate to recommend that, especially like, I know like we got some purists in the group, and I'm like, I want my websites to be good, but also I want my business to make money. And so that is like, that's scale. That's that we got to tip, we got to balance. But that's the gross sprint. I think I spent a lot of time talking about that earlier. So let's go straight to the foundation sprint. How many hours is that going to take? So yeah, like in the middle, like, how long it takes you to build a website. Maybe you've done some that are in the 80 to 100 hour range, and you got to figure out how to chop that down. I know I spent over 100 hours on a website before, but I've also spent less than 40, on a 5-page website for a service-based business, and that's closer to the range that we need, right? I have subcontractors, they can do it way faster than me now, and maybe that's the thing you need too. But anyway, the foundation sprint, how much time will that take? Well, I would say for those first 5 clients, including yourself, it's probably going to take close to 20 hours. And as you get better at it, it will get closer down to 10 hours. And so that's why it's kind of in that $1,500, $2,000 range. Because again, I want you to get paid $100 an hour, because you're going to have expenses. Again, eventually you're going to need help to do this in a practical sense. And so we need to make a little bit more than that for it to even make sense. But like I mentioned earlier, like Eric Dingler says on his podcast, which I know he's quoting from somebody else, I can't remember that person, but you don't go into it, you grow into it, okay? And so that's why I'm giving you what you do for your first 5 clients, and then what you do after that is you got to start charging close to regular price, and then over time it's kind of like websites, just keep charging more until somebody tells you no, and then sit back and refine a little bit. So anyway, that is the practical journey. Again, just to kind of bring it all in and take it back to the ghost sticky note. There's pros and cons to all of this. Every client does deserve a custom solution, but it also makes it easier to run our businesses if we have a more productized solution. So if we can find that balance, which is hard and is probably going to be ever evolving, especially as things change. Like it's a process, right? It's a process. I think hopefully if you've learned anything from this, it's that you can get from 0 to 5 pretty quickly. And if you can convince those middle 2 people to sign on to $500 per month plans, like spoiler alert, you're going to go from $0 in SEO recurring revenue to $2,000 of recurring revenue. And that's not bad. Like that could be your mortgage, right? That could be your rent and some other stuff, right? So like that's where it starts. And then from there, if you can start, once you get a couple, like if you go to the sprint model, like if you can close a couple foundation sprints and you have $3,000 in your pocket all of a sudden, you're like, oh, that feels pretty good. And, and now as I can say, like, having multiple clients in different phases, it sounds like it's going to be complicated, but it's actually pretty manageable. And then like getting that first client on a contract, like that was actually like, that feels really good because it's like not only is it the same like dopamine hit that you always get when you get a new client, but it's like the relief of like, I don't have to worry about when this client's going to leave because they're here for the next 12 months. Or, the contract says they got to pay me 80%. So that's going to be a good payout too. So anyway, obviously I want to get them. And the last thing I'll say is like, if you're going to offer contracts, you can't forget what we always talk about in these lessons. Like, why are contracts a bad idea? Because you immediately rest on your laurels because you're like, I got this client for 12 months. I can chill. No, you have to get them good results. Because if they don't have a good experience in the early days, then they're not going to re-sign at the end of the 12 months. They are not going to re-sign. They have no reason to do it. Even if you get results along the way, they'll have a bad taste in their mouth from the early days. And so, like, don't do that. And I really hope we don't do that. It was hard because it was a holiday week, but I'm hoping to, like, really kick some butt this week for them. Because usually, anyway, that's a different video. So every business is different. So it's good to have the SEO sprint model because that can really be tweaked. But I think the more productized our solution can be, or we can just say the price, I think is helpful. So that is what I want to leave you with. So I really hope this answered everybody's question out there, and I hope this answers a lot of stuff. I really think this is a good lesson right here. So anyway, next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to rank higher for Bend web design, and also get module 4 of the GBP expert course going, and yes, keep dripping out the local SEO masterclass lessons because we need to get those out there ASAP. And so I promise we'll be working on those soon. So anyway, thanks for sticking around this long if you did, and glad the mic didn't die this time. See you soon in the next one.